Nicole Scott here from Mobile Geeks, and today I'm going to be unboxing the Zenfone Zoom. It's been 1 year since we first heard about it. Let's find out what ASUS has been up to this entire time. If this isn't your first time looking at an ASUS box, the Zenfone Zoom has very different packaging from previous generations. It's actually very sleek, silky, a little bit rough. We've got the phone front and center, so this is the Zoom. I will get into the specifications of this later after I take everything out of the box. So here we have a lanyard that attaches to the phone, some premium earbuds, extra tips, a micro USB cable, and a PSU. The first thing that you'll notice about the Zoom is that it has a giant raised area for the camera. Now this is the smartphone that's capable of a 3x optical zoom. Now this is called a leather finish, but it's not actually leather. It's kind of a plastic, and to be honest with you, it reminds me a lot of the Samsung Galaxy S4 or 5, kind of this plastic that Samsung's actually stopped using because it is kind of cheap. It looks like leather, but it definitely doesn't feel like leather. You can see there we have an Intel logo. Here around the top we have a 3.5mm headphone jack. ASUS claims that this is 5mm, so this is actually a metal unibody design. And then the bump here actually goes all the way up to 11.95mm thick. So 5mm metal up to 11.95. The entire handset weighs in at 185 grams, which is actually quite heavy feeling. And especially because of the bump and the way that the phone is balanced, it definitely does feel heavy. So taking a walk around the system, we have the volume rocker. Everything feels very solid. The buttons feel very nice. There's the power button. Here's a video record button, as well as a dedicated button for your camera, which is nice. I always love to see stuff like this. Around the bottom, we have a micro USB, and then you can obviously remove the back here. Here around the corner is where we have the ability to attach the lanyard. So if you're using this as a camera, you can actually dangle it from your wrist. Now I'm just going to take the back off. What we're going to find is, there we go. So we have a micro SD card slot here, as well as a SIM card slot. Now we have options for 64 or 128 gigabytes of internal storage. So the photos that you take with the handset, you can choose to do RAW and larger formats, so that because you are getting quite a lot with this 13 megapixel shooter. All right, so why don't we turn it on to see about the boot time. So this actually comes with an Intel Z3590 processor, which is actually a 64-bit processor. It's only quad core, running at 2.5 gigahertz. It's got 4 gigabytes of RAM, which is actually fantastic. It's got also LTE. The battery is 3000 milliampere, and it is fast charge, which is fantastic. So that means that you can get a 0 to 60% in about 39 minutes. So if the 3000 milliampere battery isn't enough, at least you can top up quite quickly. So I cut out about 10 seconds of boot time here. Taking a look at the handset itself now that the display is on, this is a 5.5 IPS panel. It's got half decent viewing angles. If we bump up the brightness, it's acceptably bright. To be honest with you, it could be a little bit brighter for my liking, but the viewing angles are quite good and it seems relatively solid. To be honest with you, one of the things that bothered me most about this display is the bezel size. So it's absolutely enormous. And then we have down here just a huge chin. So we've got the hardware buttons here, which I'm a big fan of, but then we have this kind of extra chin space here, and then around the top we also have a significant amount of kind of space with the ASUS logo there. All right, now let's talk camera. Up front here we have a 5 megapixel selfie cam, and on the back we've got the 13 megapixel shooter that's capable of 3x optical zoom. Now you kind of need to pinch in order to get the slider to come up. So there we go. I've got the Stormtrooper in focus on the shelf there. Just take his photo. And then we've got guys down here. Take his photo as well. So you can kind of get a sense of how far all of these things are. And then we can take a look at the picture quality. So we've got this guy here. That's excellent. So I'll have all these photos in the review if you want to take closer looks at them. So with perfect lighting, and the stormtrooper actually looks quite good considering that the table is lit and then the wall is not really lit. So we do have a little bit of noise around his helmet. It's not the most clear photo, but then again, it's also not perfectly lit. All right, so here are some outdoor shots that I took. So here's me waiting to cross the street on my bicycle, and then we've got all these people on the other side of the road. There we go. So you can see how far that is? How we can kind of zoom in and get a pretty decent level of detail. You can almost read the Chinese on those signs. Like, look how far that actually is. It's very far. So we've got some more. If we zoom in on that, you can see that the Chinese is totally readable for how far it is away. So the zoom is really working out here. So here's me at lunch, and you can make out what's written on those packages there. All right, here's a shot of some books that I took. If we zoom in on that, you can absolutely read what's on the spine of some of these, even though they're all quite far. So you do get a great level of detail with the photos. Macro is okay. Macro shots are just fine. And this is another example of what I'm talking about when things are, like, this was actually a very cloudy day. So the fact that it had this much ambient light that was blowing out the photo actually really surprised me. So going to macro is not that easy for the zoom. Now if we take a look at the camera app itself, this is very familiar if you have used an ASUS phone before. So we have a very high level of customization if you need to like change the ISO. And then obviously there's low light mode, a super resolution, nighttime GIFs, beautify, a smart remove, time lapse, slow motion, all of these things. So there's, you know, a lot of options here at the camera. I have been a pretty big fan of the ASUS UI, and the low light, which only shoots 3 megapixel cameras or 3 megapixel photos, is actually pretty good. You get like a really decent photo for it virtually being black outside. So all of these things are things that we're going to test out in the review. So that was just a quick unboxing of the Zenfone Zoom. What did you guys think? Is it worth waiting a year for? Has the market just caught up? Is something like this necessary? And the review is coming. This was just a hands-on and an unboxing. So let me know in the comments if there's something that you want to see, any photos that you want taken, any types of photos that you want taken. I make these videos for you guys, so I can include whatever you'd like in them. So I'm Nicole Scott for Bubble Geeks, and I just wanted to tell you one last thing about why I had a sticker on my finger, because it's been raining a lot here in Taipei, as you can tell from the photos, and the chain fell off my bike, and then I got a boo-boo on my finger, and I thought I should put a sticker on it rather than have a gaping wound. Was that the right call? What is the etiquette for a video where I shoot my hands with an owie? So Nicole Scott here from Bubble Geeks, asking your advice, and I'm gonna dive right into my review.
What?